Hey guys, it's Indestructible, and on today's YouTube video, we are talking NFL and updating my lifetime power rankings. My very first video in this still very young YouTube channel was ranking all of the NFL teams based on their performance during my lifetime. Now that the 2023 Super Bowl is over, I've updated my rankings and I'm here to share them with you. I'm sorry it took so long to make this. I'm still trying to get over that Super Bowl, but I'm putting on a brave face today to give you guys these rankings. For those of you who are new, and as a brief refresher, I award points to each franchise based on their on-the-field performance. Additional points are given when they make the playoffs, win division titles, go to the Super Bowl, and win those Super Bowls. For those franchises that started after I was born, I take an average of their points per year and multiply it by the amount of seasons there have been in my lifetime. So without any further explanation, let's just jump into it. The Cleveland Browns still remain at the bottom of this list even after an 11-win season and making the playoffs for only the fourth time in my life. The most impressive part of this year's result was the fact that they had as many wins as they did, with Deshaun Watson only playing 6 games. 2023's Comeback Player of the Year helped Cleveland with a final push into the playoffs, but also was a major contributing factor to getting blown out by the Texans in the wild card round. I'm putting the Arizona Cardinals here at number 31, even though they are technically tied for 30th place in points. The Cardinals finished right where the preseason betting odds placed them in the win total. The Cardinals started out dead in the water at 1-8 without Kyler Murray. They ended the season 3-5, and the biggest question now is, can Kyler Murray stay healthy enough and make a big enough difference for them to be able to contend in the tough NFC West? And who are they going to take with the number 4 pick in the upcoming draft? At number 30, we have the Detroit Lions. Both Arizona and Detroit have the same amount of regular season wins in my lifetime. The difference between these two resumes is Detroit has 4 more playoff appearances, while Arizona has that 1 Super Bowl berth. Detroit's future looks brighter as they were able to take the NFC North and make it all the way to the NFC Championship for the first time since 1991. They had the 49ers on the ropes, but some questionable decisions by Dan Campbell on 4th down led to the second half collapse. The NFC North is surprisingly looking very competitive now, so will the Lions be able to hold off the others? We have the New York Jets at number 29, and the entire Jets season lasted a total of 3 plays. That's all it took for the supposed savior Aaron Rodgers to go down with a season-ending Achilles injury. The defense tried to hang tough, but the offense was completely non-existent. We have the Jacksonville Jaguars, who had a very disappointing end to their season. After sneaking out a close win against the Texans in Week 12, the Jaguars were 8-3 and 2 games ahead in the AFC South. However, the Jaguars collapsed down the stretch and lost 5 of their last 6 games and completely missed the playoffs. You gotta think that Lawrence is still the long-term future, but I'm sure there's some growing concern on this team's ability to contend now that the AFC South is no given anymore. The Las Vegas Raiders stay at number 27. I personally keep having this feeling like this year was a disappointing year from them, but in reality, they actually finished a game above what the preseason odds were for them. I think it's because Garoppolo ended up being a bust after coming over for the Niners, and Josh McDaniels lost the locker room so badly that he was fired after a 3-5 start. Antonio Pierce lit a fire into this team right at the start, winning their first 2 games. Granted, it was against the 2 New York teams. An embarrassing 3-0 loss to Minnesota, but then a 63-point offensive onslaught and a 2 defensive touchdown upset of the Chiefs, and this was just a weird year for this team. The fact that the number 26 Cincinnati Bengals still posted a winning record without a healthy Joe Burrow for basically the entire season is quite impressive to me. There's not much to be said about this team this year, but a lot of people are pinging this team to make a deep playoff run next year. Dropping 1 spot to number 25, the Washington Commanders went 2-13 after starting the season 2-0, including losing their last 8 games. That's grounds for almost any head coach to get fired. The Commanders suffered the worst point differential of all 32 teams, and it's difficult to know when this team will be relevant again. Surpassing the Commanders to number 24, we have the most surprising team of the NFL this past season, and that's the Houston Texans. With the help of the Jaguars' collapse, the Texans were able to steal the AFC South crown behind the surprising debuts of head coach DeMeco Ryans and rookie quarterback CJ Stroud. The Texans then backed up their regular season performance by dismantling the Browns in the wild card game. Stroud now already has more playoff victories than Tua and Justin Herbert combined. The Chicago Bears are on the clock again for the second year in a row, not because they finished with the worst record, but because they own Carolina's pick in this upcoming draft. For a while there, they did look like they were going to have both the number 1 and the number 2 pick, though, starting off 2-7 before being forced to actually play the Panthers. The Bears closed out the year 5-3 and made a playoff push there for just a minute. The Bears have now traded away Justin Fields, which all but guarantees that they'll be taking a quarterback with that first pick, and most likely Caleb Williams. Speaking of the Panthers, the worst team this past year drops down a spot to number 22. As of now, it looks like the dysfunctional ownership group traded up to take the wrong quarterback, as CJ Stroud clearly outperformed Bryce Young this year. But was it really Young's fault? I'm not quite sure. It's hard to tell. But what's easy to tell is that this franchise doesn't really know what it's doing. Firing coaches left and right, trading away their only good players, and then giving up too many assets for non-franchise changing players. I hope I don't get a drink spilled on me for saying all of that. Moving past its sad division rival are the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta remained irrelevant and a playoff contender for most of the year, but that's only because of how awful the NFC South is. They never got any quality play from Desmond Ridder, which is why they went out and made a big splash with signing Kirk Cousins. The second most disappointing team other than the Panthers were the Los Angeles Chargers, who fell a spot back to number 20. It's sad how mediocre this team has been over the past couple of years while having Justin Herbert playing this well. We're led to believe that this is all going to come to an end now that with Jim Harbaugh taking over. If he can't fix this franchise, I don't know who can. Surpassing the Chargers are the Dolphins, who started this season really strong, posting that 70-20 demolishing of the Broncos in Week 3. With the Bills struggling, the Dolphins looked poised to win just their 6th division title since 1990. But injuries and a sputtering offense had them limping into the playoffs, even dropping the final winner-take-all game against Buffalo for the division. The Dolphins were quickly dispatched by the Chiefs, but I expect them to still remain competitive next year. Number 18 remains the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who got a surprising lift by Tom Brady's replacement, Baker Mayfield. Mayfield won over the fans and his teammates, and, helped out by an easy division, was able to lead them back to the playoffs and even win them a playoff game. The Bucs gave the Lions a challenging divisional round game, and that prompted ownership to try and keep this pirate ship going. They re-signed Baker and Mike Evans, and we'll see if they'll be able to continue remaining competitive. The Rams were looking like a wounded, depleted animal after the first half of the season. Facing a 3-6 record, the Rams turned it around behind newcomer Puka Nacua and won 7 of their final 8 games to make it into the playoffs. A hard-fought game against the Lions ended their season, but this team now has a more optimistic future than it had before going into this season. With Donald retiring, though, and Stafford continuing to age, how many more runs does this team actually have? The odds makers expected the number 16 Tennessee Titans to continue to decline in 2023, and they were right. The AFC South for the longest time has always been a winnable division, and the Titans went 1-5 in that division. They had the opportunity to see if Will Levis can be the long-term answer for them at quarterback, but it's starting to look like they may have to go back to the draft or trade board. No one really expected the Vikings to have the same record as they did in 2022, but Cousins going down for the year really did them in. The Vikings had a couple of surprising wins after his injury, but then lost 6 of their last 7, and their only win was that ugly 3-0 victory over the Raiders. Kirk decided to go somewhere else, so Minnesota decided to turn to Sam Darnold to be their starter for the upcoming year. That is, unless they decide to make a splash in this year's draft. The Saints drop 1 spot to number 14 after losing the tiebreaker to the Bucs for the NFC South crown and missing the playoffs. With newly acquired Derek Carr, the team improved upon their 7-10 record, but there are still a few more gaps for this team to fill before they are considered a threat in the NFC. Surpassing the Saints are the Buffalo Bills, who had one of the shakiest starts to a season for a presumed contender that I've seen in a while. With inexplicable losses to the Jets, Patriots, and Broncos, and a gauntlet 3-game stretch coming up against the Eagles, Chiefs, and Cowboys, the 5-5 Bills were considered in danger of missing out on the playoffs. However, the Bills went 7-1 down the stretch, even beating the Dolphins to claim the AFC East for the 4th year in a row. None of that matters much, as Bills fans and NFL lovers everywhere are waiting for this team to get through Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in the playoffs. Unfortunately, this year ended up being another disappointing end for the Bills. Coming off their surprising 2022 season, the New York Giants were expected to come back down to earth a little bit in 2023, which they did. It's hard to know how significant of a loss it was to lose Daniel Jones for the season, but it's surprising to me they even won 6 games. Now with Saquon Barkley leaving, is there anything to be hopeful for with this team? Staying just outside the top 10 are the Seattle Seahawks. Trying to come off their surprisingly stellar 2022 season, the Seahawks looked like they could do some damage in the NFC. While the Niners were struggling, the Seahawks for a brief moment took the lead in the NFC West after an impressive 5-2 start. However, the Seahawks then had to endure a gauntlet schedule against the Ravens, Rams, and then 2 games against those Niners. The Seahawks suddenly found themselves with a 6-7 record. They kept their playoff hopes alive by winning 3 of their last 4 games, but lost out on the tiebreaker to the Packers for the final playoff spot. The Colts keep their number 10 ranking after a surprising 9-8 record. What's more shocking to me is that they continue to remain competitive even after their rookie quarterback Anthony Richardson went down early in the season. Minshew and the Colts turned it on the last half of the season and went 6-2 during games 9 through 16. With the Jaguars crapping the bed against the Titans, the Colts found themselves in a winner-take-all game against the Texans. Down 23-17, the Colts were driving to take the lead late in the game, but Minshew and Goodson could not connect on a wide-open 4th and 1 to end the Colts season. After the 2021 season, the Niners and the Eagles were tied for the number 8 spot in my rankings. The Eagles defeated the Niners in the NFC Championship and advanced to the Super Bowl and laid a firm grasp on the number 8 spot. The following year, it was the Niners that made it and reclaimed sole possession of number 8. The fall down to number 9 is just a small metaphor of what happened to the Eagles this season. Coming off a blistering 10-1 start and a 2-game lead on the NFC's number 1 seed, the Niners dismantled the Eagles and the Eagles never fully recovered. It was a bizarre sight to behold. The Eagles looked completely dejected on both offense and defense the rest of the way. The Eagles not only gave up the number 1 seed, but eventually the division to the Cowboys after losing 5 of their last 6 games, and then hardly showing up in the wildcard game against the Bucs. This team is on high alert for this upcoming season, and we could see some changes coming if things don't turn around fast. There are a few reasons why it's taken me longer to post this video. I did record the audio, but it didn't save, and some of the other recordings that I did were just way too long. Another reason is because I could just not even really think of talking about sports for a while after the following another Super Bowl loss by my favorite team. This team seemed like it was finally destined to return to its Super Bowl winning ways after 2 dramatic playoff victories against the Packers and the Lions. There are countless reasons and excuses to point out why the Niners couldn't get it done again. The easiest thing that I can point to is that just there were too many or a handful of plays where one of the 11 players just didn't do their job. I get upset just talking about it. The Niners should be a good, dominant team again next year, but I'm sort of at the point where I just want to say, wake me up when it's February. It's just too painful to get my hopes up with this franchise. For the last half of the season, the Baltimore Ravens were playing like the best team in the NFL, especially after dismantling the 49ers on Christmas night. However, the same critics that have knocked Lamar Jackson for not being able to deliver in the playoffs are able to add one more example to that list. The Ravens seemed to abandon everything that made them so dominant in the regular season and became a pass-happy team in the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs. With the Bengals getting better and the AFC North just always being stacked, it's never a guarantee that they will be right back here next year, which I'm sure makes it painful. I would know. The Broncos continue to slide lower down these rankings as this year marked the 8th straight playoff absence. Crazy to think that this team has not made the playoffs since Peyton Manning was their quarterback. Russell Wilson is now off of the team, and they were so ready to move on from him that they were willing to eat all of those tens of millions of dollars in dead cap space. Now they don't have anyone there who can do the job, but they do own the 12th pick. Finally dropping one spot, we have the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys came into the 2023 season feeling like this was going to be their year. Even after getting spanked by 32 points against the Niners, people were still pinning the Cowboys as the NFC favorite. The Cowboys did benefit from the complete breakdown of the Eagles and were able to nab the number 2 seed in the playoffs. However, the Cowboys cowboyed and not only lost, but got blown out of their own building against the Packers in the wild card round. By all accounts, it looks like this team is just going to try running it back again, but I don't think that's going to work for them. The new number 4 team in my rankings are the back-to-back Super Bowl champs. I'm just going to admit now that it's going to be impossible to not sound like a bitter Niners fan talking about the Chiefs. What can I say that hasn't already been said? The Chiefs are on a tear right now. This year was seeming to be the year where the Chiefs have looked the weakest in the Mahomes era, but they still found a way to put it all together, make the right plays, get the right calls, and take home their 3rd Lombardi trophy in 5 years. Hats off to them. They're right on the doorstep of the number 3 team, which is the Green Bay Packers. Everyone was nervous to see if Jordan Love could actually take the reins of this Packers franchise after 2 dominant NFL quarterbacks led before him. There were some skeptics in the first half of the year, but Love then poured it on at the end and vaulted this team into the playoffs and just a few unfortunate plays from an NFC Championship berth. Love made a couple of errant plays in the NFC divisional round, typical of what you might see as a first-year starter, but expectations will be higher going into the next year in what will be a fun divisional race against the Lions. The Steelers hold firm in the number 2 spot. This franchise continues to know how to win games, even though at times this year it looked bad, at least on the offensive end, that is. The Steelers reclaimed the number 1 spot for the most regular season wins in my lifetime. Now, the Steelers not only picked up Russell Wilson, but also traded for Justin Fields. Looks like they are done with their current quarterback room, who couldn't get it done last year, and I'm assuming everybody will be on a tight leash during the 2024 season. And holding on to the number 1 spot are the New England Patriots, who will remain here for quite some time, even with the 2nd worst record in the NFL this season. I mentioned in my original video that it would take nearly a decade of futility from the Patriots and a decade of dominance from another franchise just to catch them. Could it be the Chiefs? The Patriots are finally moving on from their legendary coach. With a new coach and a new quarterback added to their pretty solid defense, they may surprise some people next year, but we still may be a year or 2 out before they become the Patriots of the past. So there you have it. Those are my rankings updated after the 2023 Super Bowl. Sorry it took me so long to get this out, but I continue to appreciate the support that you all give me. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If there's anything else you'd like to see, let me know. Until then, take care, guys.